You know, when you learned history in school, it always seemed so straightforward, right? All laid out in a nice, neat line. It feels like it's just a fact of the universe, like the order of the planets. But what if I told you it's not a fact at all? It was invented, designed by one man.
I mean, think about it. Ancient, medieval, modern. You've heard those words a million times. It's like the three-act play of our entire past. But have you ever stopped to ask, why? Why those three acts? Where did that even come from? It's a framework so deep in our brains, we don't even see it's there.
Well, before the 17th century, history was kind of a mess. It was this big, sprawling collection of stories, tales about kings and empires and battles, all jumbled together without much of a system. Then, this one scholar comes along and brings order to the chaos. He's the one who turned a bunch of stories into the organized subject we know today. So, let's pull back the curtain. We're going to dig into the origin story of the history that you were taught, and I think you'll be surprised at what's behind it. And this right here is the whole point of our explainer. That timeline you had to memorize for class, it wasn't discovered like some scientific law. It was constructed, and every construction has an architect. So who was this architect? Who's the guy who basically drew the blueprint for our entire understanding of the past? Well, let's meet the man who organized time itself. His name was Christoph Cellarius. He was born Christoph Keller, actually, in Germany. And while he was a respected classical scholar, his real claim to fame, the thing that's lasted over 300 years, is that simple, powerful, three-part division of history we all take for granted. Now, to really get Cellarius, you have to understand the world he came from. He was born right after the 30 Years' War, which was a period of just unbelievable chaos and destruction in Europe. You have to wonder, right? If you grow up surrounded by that kind of disorder, maybe you develop a deep, burning desire to create order, to put things in neat boxes. And that's what he did, dedicating his life to study, first as a teacher and then as a big-shot professor at the University of Halle. So driven by this need for order, it was at the university that his big idea really came to life. He created a totally new way of looking at the entire sweep of human history.
And here it is. This is the simple, almost elegant structure that changed everything. Cellarius basically said, look, you can understand all of history in three acts. Act 1, ancient history, all the way up to the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Act 2, medieval history, the Middle Age that connects the old world to the new one. And finally, Act 3, modern history, kicking off with the Renaissance and rolling on to his own time.
Now, for a system like this to work, you need clear dividing lines, right? You need those big, dramatic turning points. For Cellarius, the absolute game changer was the fall of the Western Roman Empire. He saw that as the final curtain for the ancient world, the definitive break that kicked off a whole new era. Just thinking that analytically was a huge leap forward. And this really shows you just how radical his idea was. Before him, a lot of scholars kind of just skipped the Middle Ages. They look back at ancient Greece and Rome, and then basically fast forward 1,000 years to the Renaissance, treating everything in between as this dark, unimportant gap. Cellarius gave that Middle Age a name, a definition, and a place on the timeline. He didn't just organize history, he basically rescued a millennium from being forgotten. Okay, so it's a great idea. But how on earth does one professor's framework become the go-to standard for pretty much the entire Western world? The answer is surprisingly simple: textbooks. See, Cellarius wasn't just a brilliant thinker, he was also a fantastic teacher. He wrote a series of textbooks for his students based on his three-part system, and they were a massive hit. They were clear, they were organized, and they spread like wildfire. These books were the vehicles that drove his idea out of his lecture hall and into schools everywhere. And you can see how it just snowballed over time. It starts small, in his classroom in the late 1600s. He passes away in 1707, but his books, well, they just keep on selling. Through the 1700s, universities all over Europe start using his model, and by the 1800s, it's not just an academic theory anymore, it's just how history is taught, period. So his legacy is way bigger than just a timeline. By creating this clear structure, he helped turn history from a bunch of campfire stories about kings into a real, structured academic subject with its own rules and logic. But of course, with any idea that's been around for this long, the story gets a little more complicated. And today, his framework has some pretty significant critics. First, let's just admit, there's no denying its power. To this day, the ancient medieval modern system is baked into everything. Our museums, our books, our university courses, it's the default setting for how we think about the past.
But it comes with one massive blind spot, a problem that can be summed up in a single word: Eurocentric.
When you think about it, Cellarius' major turning points, the fall of Rome, the Renaissance, these are all European events. So his system basically puts Europe at the very center of the story of the entire world, which means the histories of Asia, Africa, and the Americas, which all have their own unique timelines and turning points, get kind of sidelined or forced into a structure that doesn't really fit them.
So why does the story of this German scholar from the 1600s matter today? Because it's the perfect reminder that the fundamental systems we use to make sense of the world, they aren't natural. They're human inventions, born in a specific time and place, and they carry the biases of that time and place with them.
The history you know was an invention, and that should make you ask a really interesting question. What other obvious systems are shaping how you see the world, right now, without you even realizing it? What other invisible frameworks are hiding in plain sight?